Hi, Cris Mannix. How did the Sixers beat Toronto last night with Joel Embiid being as sick as he was?
Well, this was the most impressive win of the postseason for any team, I thought. I mean, backs against the wall, Philadelphia, after getting pretty roundly beaten in Game 1, to bounce back in the way that they did. I think it did start defensively. Kawhi Leonard had a great game. But Kawhi Leonard during that game, I'm watching him, and he was doing a lot of un-Kawhi-like things. I mean, one of the things I like about Kawhi is that there's very little wasted motion in his game. He either attacks or he moves the ball. And he was just kind of holding the ball and hanging around, dribbling a little bit too much. That was number one. And holding that Toronto bench to just, 6 points in that game, that was incredibly impressive. To outscore them, 26-5 or something along that range, that was outstanding. I mean, their ability to lock in on that end of the floor and make Siakam shoot a low percentage and hold the bench to what they did, that was remarkable. And Butler, we talked about this going into the postseason. Like, he's the one guy on that team that's capable of taking over a game late. And that shot he made in the fourth quarter off that kind of looping pass from Joel Embiid to put that down, there's nobody else on that Sixers roster that can make a shot like that. So they had Butler playing outstanding, and their defense was terrific from start to finish.
Well, and so I agree with you on the defensive part of it. And you guys know before the year the Sixers were my finals pick. I've obviously moved off that since then. But I would love to say, look what the Sixers can be after everyone was killing them in Game 1. Unfortunately, I can't. Because I think so much of what happened last night is not sustainable for them. I felt that the entire second half, despite having a 13-point halftime lead, they were holding on for dear life. There were 4 separate times where the Raptors were in the midst of a run, came down the court, got the exact shot they wanted, and opened 3, whether it was from Danny Green, whether it was from Kawhi, and they just couldn't make the shot that would have put them over the hump, the shot to either tie the game or take the lead. And it just felt to me that, yes, Jimmy Butler was sensational, and defensively, especially in the first half, that's the type of defense Philly has to play. And the bench unit was shocking that their biggest weakness not only neutralized, but heavily outplayed the Raptors' biggest strength. But so much of what happened in Game 2 to me was not sustainable for them moving forward. I think Philly would be fortunate when they go back home just to get a split. Not to protect home court, but just to get a split, because Embiid does not have an answer for Marc Gasol and never has throughout his career. He's not going to get healthier from his knee standpoint. He might get healthier from he was dealing with a stomach bug yesterday. And the energy Ben Simmons is clearly expending on the defensive end against Kawhi, he was not only a non-factor, a negative factor on the offensive end yesterday. So all of that concerns me for Philly, even though, to your point, they have to be thrilled as 8-9-point underdogs to go into Toronto and get that win.
A few points. Ben Simmons is too young to be tired on the offensive end because he's playing defense. I know Nick likes Ben Simmons and everything, so that. As far as the biggest win of the playoffs, this was an encouraging win. Biggest win of the playoffs, the Clippers coming back to be able to beat the Warriors.
Sure.
But to be able to win a game where your franchise player is sick, doesn't have his best stuff, it's got to be very, very encouraging. When your bench plays the way they do, now that's the way how they get through game number 2, but can they sustain that? I don't think they're going to be able to sustain that. Your guy, Greg Monroe, you talked about last year.
I wasn't going to say
he got the message.
Greg Monroe got the numbers, baby.
A year late on
he comes in, puts 10 points in right away. Oh.
Probably have to retire now on a sprained ankle after leaving the game.
Goes out on top.
But I would just say you have to be encouraged going into this. Your best sub, Mike Scott, averages 8 points a game, best off the bench you have. You're able to get a split. And no, I can't slow down Kawhi, but I might be able to slow down Siakam.
Yep.
And that might be the path to be able to win a game. Toronto, their bench has got to be able to show up in Philadelphia, but great win for Philadelphia by putting the offense and the ball in Jimmy Butler's hands, which I believe is a significant difference in how they're trying to run things. If Joel Embiid's healthy, though, in Game 3, they always play different. They can't seem to get that continuity in Brooklyn. He was out. The offense looked great. Last night, he's injured, not himself. Their offense looked better. But from a defensive standpoint, to be able to advance, they have to keep that up, Jenna.
So I wanted to ask you about that. Why is it this Sixers team seems to come together when either Joel Embiid is not on the floor or not giving 100%, when someone else has that need to step up on the court?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know that there's I don't think that Joel Embiid is any kind of luxury for this team. That's for sure. I just think that in this moment, you saw Jimmy Butler do what he was brought there to do. He is the one guy that can make those types of plays in those types of situations and take over in the fourth quarter. And that's why they really brought them there. I mean, they gave up a lot to go get Jimmy Butler, and his ability to take over games late was huge for them.
And let's be clear, Jimmy Butler saved them offensively, but they still only scored 94 points.
Yeah.
Going into last night, teams in the playoffs that scored fewer than 95 points were 2-13. So their offense was not good enough to win. It was only good enough to win because their defense was so great. And Danny Green missed a bunch of shots, including an open three to tie the game at the end. And Kyle Lowry had 7 quarters of comatose offense until he woke up in the fourth quarter. This is why it's so concerning for me if you're rooting for Philadelphia. Jimmy Butler's not going to do this consistently. He had 36 points in the first game of the playoffs. Then he went 7, 16, 11, 9, 10, and now 30. Oh, Jimmy did it again.
But why is that? That's a question right there.
Right, that's who he's been since the Phillies acquired him. I don't know the answer why. It's one of the reasons why, if you're Philly, you might be a little skeptical about, are we going to max out Jimmy Butler this summer? But Kawhi's 35. I think it is sustainable. Yeah. And maybe not quite 35, but we said yesterday he's not going to score 45 a night, but we expect him to score 30 each game of this series. And so I think Toronto can play so much better, and Philadelphia has some of the same systemic issues they had going into the series.
I think Philadelphia, there's always a power struggle. I mean, who's going to get credit? I believe in that locker room, people don't talk about it a lot, but Joel Embiid always wants to get credit. Ben Simmons wants to be able to get credit. And then when they relinquish the power to Jimmy Butler, he's capable of doing it. But the inconsistency for him to be a max player, that is a problem for the Sixers.
I'm with you, too. I don't think that Toronto goes into Philadelphia feeling like they've been exposed or anything like that. I think guys like Van Vliet are going to play better. I think Siakam is more the player we saw in Game 1 than the one we saw in Game 2. I think you still have to have a lot of confidence that organically you're going to play better if you're Toronto in Game 3. And Philadelphia, I just don't know. I mean, 94 points is not going to get it done against Toronto.
No, it never gets
not in a 7-game series.
3-14 now, teams in the playoffs that score under 95. Game 3, though, one thing that has happened for Philly, Tobias Harris got to show up.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris was...
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.